Good day, everyone. Today we are going to discuss some of the philosophical underpinnings that underlie a lot of the moral and ethical dilemmas that we will focus in throughout this course and you will come across as patient advocates. As in the case of many philosophical discussions, I'll begin by giving you all some case studies and scenarios to walk through, some general thought examples to get your mind thinking about some of these dilemmas that we approach from a bioethical perspective. You may be familiar with the first scenario I will present. It's a thought experiment that has been used by many philosophers and psychologists for the last century. Imagine a runaway trolley. The trolley is going down the track at full speed and the brakes have just failed. A little bit down the track, there are 5 people that cannot move. If the train keeps going, it will kill the 5 people. Fortunately, the train can swerve to the right. But for the train to swerve to the right, Jesse, who happens to be standing there, must push a button that changes the direction of the train. But as the train swerves to the right, there is also one person on that track that is immobilized. So Jesse is forced to decide between doing nothing and allowing 5 people to die, or pushing the button and causing the death of a single person. So what is the ethical approach to take? Should Jesse turn the train by pushing the button, or should he allow it to keep going and kill all 5 people? Now, most people, depending on your philosophical approach, would probably push the lever and cause the train to kill the single person and spare 5 people. There's nothing necessarily right or wrong about that response, but using that as a baseline for now, how most people operate, let's go on to the next scenario. So we're going to add an additional twist to this in scenario 2. So let's say the same train is going full speed ahead, impossible to stop, and the only way for that train to stop is to push a heavy object directly into its path. Jesse looks around, and unfortunately, the only object that is sufficiently heavy enough to stop the track is a very large, heavy man who is standing above the platform. Jesse has the same choice they had before. They can allow the train to continue crushing and killing 5 people, or Jesse can affirmatively push that man that is standing above the platform directly into the train's path. It will kill that man, but it will spare the 5 people's lives. Again, we ask, what's the ethical approach to take in this particular situation? Should Jesse push the heavy man, killing him but sparing the 5 people? Or should he do nothing and save that man's life and kill the other 5 people by omitting an action? These two scenarios are a bit different since Jesse's action in one is more direct and his action against the man is more direct in the second case than the first. There is a difference philosophically between pulling a lever and potentially causing the death of someone who is immobilized on the tracks and affirmatively pushing someone onto the tracks, killing them. But in either scenario, the onlooker has the choice to be responsible for killing one person or directly or indirectly being responsible for killing 5 people. Sorry about that little mix-up of words, but we'll continue. All right, so now let's take this to a more contemporary health-focused example. A brilliant transplant surgeon has 5 patients that she desperately cares about, and they are all in need of organ transplants. Each of the people will die without that organ. Unfortunately, as is often the case in real life, there are no organs that are available for any of the 5 people. To the doctor's surprise, one day a healthy young traveler who knows no one in the area walks into her office for a routine checkup. The traveler has no local friends or relatives, as I just said, and when the doctor is doing the routine physical, she determines that all of the 5 patients, that this young traveler has all the organs that all the 5 patients need, and they could directly benefit by this person's organs. And let's suppose further that if the young traveler were to disappear, no one would suspect the doctor. So there would be no legal implications with her killing this young person and saving 5 people. So what is the ethical approach to take? Should the doctor use the man's organ, killing him and saving 5 people's lives? or should she allow her patients to die, saving that one person's life? So the scenario is similar to the second train scenario when Jesse had the choice of affirmatively killing the man who was standing on the platform onto the tracks and saving the 5 people's lives. All right, so when thinking about each of these possible choices that a person can make, I want you to think about how those decisions are contingent upon the facts at the same time and be aware of the underlying philosophical approach. So the facts of each of these thought experiments is a little bit different, and that might impact our decision. But also we want to take now look at some of the philosophical underpinnings. We have all these scenarios swishing around in our mind. So let's talk about 2 primary philosophical undercurrents that we're going to look at, utilitarianism and Kantism. There are many other philosophical theories that there are some articles and discussions in the text, but we're just going to focus on these main 2 because I think they are really the most relevant to discuss and give us 2 different opinions. So utilitarians seek to maximize happiness, and from their perspective, it's worth sacrificing the one for the good of the many. Kantians, on the other hand, believe that people are an ends and not a means, so they would argue that you can't treat that single person as a means for the benefit of the 5, so you can't make the choice for killing one for the good of the 5 because every life is valuable. So as you can see, either philosophy will lead you to a different conclusion. So in summary, a utilitarian is going to sacrifice that one person for the good of the 5 and may do so in varying degrees. A utilitarian might think it's appropriate to pull the lever, but not appropriate to affirmatively kill the individual. Different utilitarians have different approaches on that. Whereas a Kantian would believe it's never appropriate to be directly or indirectly responsible for the killing of another person, even if it could potentially benefit the lives of 5. So I know a lot of this, it's like, it's a lot of words, but when we think about these 2 different perspectives, a means to an end and ends to a mean, we'll think about that when we're looking at some of the bioethical challenges that we're facing throughout the course. So right now I just want to conclude this week's talk by pointing out the complexity that is implicit in each of these different thought experiments. Again, there are no right or wrong answers. It's the process and the discussion that's important. In all 3 of the scenarios, we struggle between 2 different choices, one that would result in a death of a single individual and the other that would result in the death of 5 individuals. But in addition to the moral and ethical decisions implicit in each, I wanted to speak to another difference between the 2 that is a fundamental difference between acting affirmatively and acting passively by doing something or doing nothing, and it may cause the same result. So there is this consistent struggle in the context of bioethics. Many people, especially in the health context, will be faced with 2 different decisions, one to act and one not to act, each of them carrying a specific moral, ethical, potential reality on the back end. So it's definitely very complicated. I know a lot of these might bring up discomfort in knowing there is not necessarily a right or a wrong answer, and also thinking ahead to how to serve your clients best, knowing when there's not a right or a wrong answer. So hopefully throughout this class, we're going to come up with some ways of helping the decision-making, your own decision-making and the decision-making of your clients. So I think it's helpful to practice, think about these complex, complicated scenarios that you may face. Another way is playing out the scenarios by relying on different philosophical underpinnings and seeing how you feel about each, and then also connecting with others to discuss possible outcomes. Most of us are not all, all Kantians or all utilitarian. We use both as they make sense to the scenario. So that is also something to be aware of, that you don't always have to go with one philosophy. It's just important to understand them all. So that's it for now. I'll talk to you soon, and I look forward to reading your answers in this week's assignments. Bye.